Hello, everyone. This is Ben Dunn, your AP Sensei, creator of such comics as Ninja High School, Warrior Nun, and Marvel Mangaverse. Established Antarctic Press, a comic book publishing company, in 1985, celebrating its 40th anniversary. Um, Over the weekend, I did a couple of videos, you know, giving you my opinion on the whole Rippaverse and Comicsgate rivalry that seems to be going on, and I stirred quite a bit of hornet's nest by giving my opinion on the situation. Now, I don't, don't get me wrong. I don't, you know, dislike either one of them. I wish nothing but huge success for both of them, because I feel like any success in the comics industry is a success for comics. What I was trying to convey was the fundamental differences between the two and how I think one will ultimately do better than the other. Long term success, only history can be the judge of that. But based on the current events that are now permeating currently going on, I just gave what I thought was my assessment based on past, situations that I've encountered before the last 40 years we've been in business. I'm not saying that this situation is not unique, because we are in an era of fundamentally different situations, that are different, that are way different than those in the past. We didn't have social media, in the 1980s or we did sort of in the mid to late 90s, and it really started to come in prominence in the 2000s. But back then, it was much harder to, spread whatever opinions you had. Now, anybody can just hop on board, express what they have to say, and it can go viral or whatever. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, only history can be a judge of that. However, in this particular situation, I felt I had to give my opinion, because I feel that there is a way for, things to turn around for Comicsgate if they choose to want to do that path. First of all, I don't know what the situation is between, Eric July and Ethan Van Sciver. I don't know what their personal situation is. My understanding is that at first, Ethan was a big supporter of Eric July's venture into doing comics, and somehow he felt betrayed by something that Eric did. I don't know all the details, nor do I want to. All I know is what I'm seeing now, and I'm seeing it from outside as an observer. And I'm just trying to give people my opinion as to how I feel things can improve for both of them. There's plenty of opportunity for both sides to be successful. I'm not, I'm not saying that I myself am successful in the terms of monetary return. I mean, Eric July made $3 million on his first campaign, and that's nothing to scoff at. And Ethan Van Sciver made over $1 million on his first campaign. That is, highly respectable, very envious, and it's one of those things that, I could, I'm not going to say never achieve, but it would be difficult for me to achieve. Some people say, "Oh, it's because they had such great influence." Now, that probably is true. They did build their audience. They worked hard at that. I don't fault them for that at all. They had something to say. People wanted to consume it, and they translated that into a monetary gain. And that's nothing wrong. That's our capitalist system. That's the way it works. And I applaud them for that. I applaud them for their success. I am not one to say, I did so much. I'm doing so much better. I'm not jealous of it. I'm not envious of it. I love the fact that they're both highly successful. What I loathe is all the drama that's being created by both sides. The thing about the one thing about say the Comicsgate's greatest weakness is it has no direction. It has no purpose other than just being a brand. And if you really think about it, if Ethan Van Sciver with Cyberfrog were to just do Cyberfrog, without the Comicsgate label, how would that change his sales? Would that increase them or decrease them, or would they remain the same? We don't know. Has the Comicsgate label become toxic? I would probably say yes, it has become toxic. It's gotten to the point now where, despite some creators in Comicsgate, delivering their product on time, a lot of it has been negative. Creators not delivering their product on time, or extremely late, or not at all. And this is detrimental to that label, to that brand. And as long as there's behavior that negatively affects Comicsgate, then it's going to get worse over time. This I am pretty sure of. Unless they can do a turnaround, which I highly doubt. I mean, nothing is impossible, but at its current trajectory, I don't believe it will survive for very long. Go as long as EVS, who is he is the head man of the whole comics book label. But even I predict he will eventually abandon it. I see a lot of creators not even using it anymore. They're not touting the fact, hey, I'm a Comicsgate creator, because the support is waning. Now, and I don't understand the obsession with them both trying to outdo each other in terms of funding. When Anarch Press started out, we didn't care what the other publishers were making. Okay, it didn't affect us one iota. Now, we would look at what made them successful and say, hey, maybe we can learn something from that. Maybe there's something in there that we can do that will help us, generate more revenue for our company. Because in the end, that's what it comes down to, is generating revenue for our company. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Our ability to pivot and change, that's one of our strong suits. We can see trends, we can see how things are going. The difference is that we don't put all our eggs in one basket. And this is what I'm trying to say, is that what exactly is Comicsgate trying to achieve? What is it? What's the end game for Comicsgate? I don't know what it is. Is it? Are they trying to look? I notice that Comicsgate does not have a single label on any of their comics from any creator. Is there a single Comicsgate, quote unquote, Comicsgate comic that has a Comicsgate logo? I don't see it. Granted, I don't get every single comics book comic. I did get Jawbreakers, and they didn't have Comicsgate on there. As far as I know, even Ethan Van Sciver own comic book Cyberfrog doesn't have a Comicsgate label on it. Now, I could be wrong. If I am, my apologies. But if you're so proud of the brand, why aren't you labeling your comics Comicsgate? Now, Eric July, he is proud to slap his logo on every single comic he produces, because he knows he's trying to associate his company with his comics. And he knows that his supporters, his buyers, are looking for that label. They're supporting that label. And Eric July, despite what you may think of him personally as a person, I don't know him. I met him once. Very nice guy, very genuine. I would, or at least I thought so. He seemed very nice. And I come to the conclusion that, he respects his fans and his readers. And that's his main concern over everything else. I don't know how much animosity exists between both he and Eric Ethan Van Sciver, but I would think that it would come to no good. This is what I will say. Stop wasting your time trying to tear each other down, and start spending more of your time building the comic industry up. And that's the difference. Is that Eric July, he may not be a comics aficionado. He may not have an encyclopedic knowledge of comics, but he's a businessman. And this is what he's been trying to say, is that businessmen run businesses. Do you think for one moment that all the past publishers of comics, including Marvel and DC, cared about, comics themselves other than how much it costs them, how much profit they're making? They didn't care about the actual production of the comic, other than if a comic book did well, we need to do more of that. Until we get to the point where people are sick of it, and then we need to find something else to do. The thing is that Eric July is taking the tact that he's putting out product that his readers want, and he's putting it out on a consistent basis. My only advice would be is to try to turn those 96-page trade graphic novels into floppies, and sell them, to Ollie's or to Bucky's or to other venues, and get them into the hands and price them, as cheaply as possible to get them into the hands of new readers. That's probably be my only advice to him is to why, not take advantage of that revenue stream if you can. And he certainly has that capability to do it should he want to do it. The thing about Comicsgate is that they don't have that capability, and nor do they want to do that. I'm sure in their minds they would love to see their comics on newsstands in the direct market. They say they don't, but why would they snub another potential revenue stream? Whatever personal reasons they have, I don't know what they are, but apparently they don't have that. They don't have the desire to approach that, and that's fine. But that's another weakness that Comicsgate has, not the ability to expand and to adapt to new changing market conditions. And that's the biggest thing that weakness they have. If they really want to succeed, they need to have somebody in charge that can oversee a line of Comicsgate, products that they can all, fundamentally control in some fashion, so that and build trust with their customers and readers that their product will be of high quality, on time, and delivered in a manner that will keep new readers, keep old readers and make new ones. Because that's really what it is. It's growth. It's about growth. Anarch Press started with one comic. And over a period of 40 years, we slowly grew over a period of time. We didn't try to put out 10 or 15 titles all at once. We put one title, see how they did, and worked on that one title, and then started doing 2 titles and 3 and so on and so forth. And then we started using creator-owned product creations to pad out our line, so that we can continue to grow. And I know things are different now. The direct market has collapsed with Diamond, and we have new distributors popping up, and it's yet to be seen whether or not they can take over the role of Diamond. But anyway, regardless, if Comicsgate continues on its current path, I don't see how it can sustain itself. It just can't, in its current form. So don't take it as I'm attacking Comicsgate. Just take it as just friendly advice that I think that needs to be done. And for God's sakes, try not to keep attacking each other. I know it's good for clickbait, sure. I know it's trying to divide, people into various camps. Like, the Civil War. Are you a Northern or a Southerner, or are you a Democrat or Republican? We're all people, and the thing is that everybody should be allowed to enjoy whatever they want to enjoy, and they shouldn't have to pick sides to enjoy it. And that's just my opinion. So anyway, I've blabbered on long enough. So until next time, this has been Done signing off.